All right.
What I was saying is I think that taxation is a really understudied issue, or the politics of taxation are understudied issues among historians, and that I think that different sides in the arguments about taxation all call on notions of justice, but they're very, very, very different kinds of morality. But each side does have a kind of moral vision, and I think that scholars really need to understand these in interaction with one another. And I think that advocates of progressive taxation in the early part of the 20th century, in the middle 20th century, made very clear arguments about why progressive taxation is important, is legitimate, helps a society function and do all the things that we want. But I think in recent years, people have not made those assumptions as explicit and as clear, and as a result, I think we have pretty much one-sided kinds of arguments about taxes today, or very flat
What's
arguments.
one-sided about it?
Well, for example, just the phrase "tax the rich," is very simplistic, I think, and understandably, probably some people who are wealthy balk at that when it's stated in that crude term, those crude ways. But I think that if you look back to our history at mid-century, when we had a much more robust system of progressive taxation, the whole country thrived. We've invested in infrastructure and research and development and universities and transportation and all of the kinds of things that helped America to become a leading economic power, and helped many votes to rise in a way that they aren't now when we have a more regressive system of taxation. But I think that scholars and citizens and public officials need to go back and recover those arguments, actually not just about taxation, but also why Social Security? Why do we have social insurance instead of private accounts? All of those discussions that seem to be settled at mid-century are open again now, and I think that many progressive political actors are neglecting the work of making the foundational arguments for the politics that they support, that are so embattled from the right now, and particularly from investors with large amounts of money to throw into television ads and things like that really oversimplify the issues.
So did the liberals have the people on their side but make a bad argument?
Well, we just heard some really interesting work from some younger scholars on this panel that show that, most Americans, apparently according to Josh Mound, who just did some really interesting work, favored what they called tax justice. In other words, to have a more progressive system of taxation, and were suffering, though, because of regressive taxation that created a pocketbook squeeze on many moderate and low income earners, and people's feelings about the injustice of tax loopholes for the very, very wealthy kind of soured them on the whole system of taxation. I think we're dealing with some of the consequences of that today, when people are so reluctant to pay taxes. I mean, ironically, you can get, I think you can get lynched in some parts of the country for saying this today, but we are the most lightly taxed population in the advanced industrial world, and we all seem to want the things that need taxes, that require taxes to pay for them. Good roads and schools and hospitals and all these other things. But we're internet, but we're just so reluctant to pay taxes, and I think historians have a lot of light to shed on this.
Well, why do you think the support for higher taxes collapsed?
Well, it's a big question and overdetermined, but some of these young scholars, and Josh Mound in particular, was pointing out that the regressive taxation started much earlier than many of us were really aware. Even in the 50s, there was a kind of a popular tax revolt, he was saying, against regressive taxation, and many low-income earners just felt like they couldn't make it. Their wages were not significant enough to support their families and their basic needs, and so when they experienced taxation on top of that felt unfair to them because wealthier people were not paying taxes in the same way, they too turned against taxes. So it's really kind of a downward spiral, I think, until we change the conversation and recover an understanding of why it is that we all need revenue to fund the things that we depend on.
Great. Thanks.